They started construction on this building back in, of all things, 1902. Took a long time to build. All of this white stone was actually harvested in Carthage, Missouri. This is actually called Carthage stone. So they quarried this, shaped it, brought it here, and erected it. This was the bank from this corner over to that way. There used to be another store on the corner. It was everything from a cobbler to a barber shop to who knows what. This other building going this way, another unique piece of history, looks like rock, solid steel, and that is from the Neosho foundry, also right here in Missouri. There used to be a date on that, but they said that was the one part that would wear off because they welded on. So the four steel beams are what holds up most of the building. This was a butcher shop, and then at one point it was a schoolhouse, so quite a bit of history here as well. We left the wood the way it is, just looks gorgeous. We just try to lacquer it every year and keep the building going. So the bank did open in 1910. Unfortunately, the bank was taking quite a few chances with the money, and when the Great Depression started, they folded pretty quick. There's a lot of good rumors as well as some solid history about the bank. Long story short, one of the better rumors, the day after the one security guard here was fired, a woman came to withdraw money. I think it was $11 is what I saw in this handwritten police report. He didn't have the money. She came back, had her wagon, got a 10-gauge shotgun, and went in and officially closed the bank. That's one way to put it, I guess. Anyway, so we do have a horse day every year. So if you guys ride horses, we let them come in the bar and have a good time. So.
The horses, or
the horses? Yep. Horses drink beer pretty quick. That weird-looking grate up there used to be a window, but it also used to be Carthage stone. We'll explain how that ended up a fan here shortly. All right, we'll head on in. Okay, so this is actually, the main bar room, of course. In the early 70s was when they cut that hole in the wall, combining all three lots. Now, one of the original bar owners was the Watkins family out of Crane, Missouri. They bought this shortly after the Great Depression had closed as a bank. The safe, the only person I know who says they know where it is the fire chief of the Republic, Chief Compton, but he's keeping that kind of a secret right now. Rumor has it was a really pretty cannonball safe with a fake back, so you could hide all kinds of stuff in it. Anyway, the big draw here, one of the things that everybody loves, is this gigantic bar back. The bar itself is obviously very, very pretty. A lot of good rumors about this. In 1977, the owner of the bar then was a man named Cecil Land. And we have a photograph of him. That's back when he was in the Army. Him and his wife, Bernice, were married out in Wyoming and ended up settling here. And that's a picture of Cecil when he's a little bit older. Cecil was in vaudeville when he was a little boy. So he can sing, he can dance, loved to tell jokes, had a phenomenal timing, and he was probably the primary reason people came to this bar. Because Cecil only served Budweiser. If you wanted a Bud Light, he would shine a flashlight at it and hand it to you. But he could sing and dance, just a very talented man. Cecil was also a great storyteller. So Cecil, while meeting a reporter from the Springfield News Leader, literally makes up a story about Wild Bill Hickok serving beer here. So if you've ever been up to Deadwood and seen Wild Bill's headstone, well, he was not even alive in 1871 when Billings was founded. He'd already been shot in the back of the head playing poker with a dead man's hand. Ironically, though, that's my wife up there. Between her and some historians she worked with, we found out there actually was a little bit of truth to that story. Wild Bill Hickok never came to Billings. He was never here, but he was in Springfield. Visited one of the oldest bars in Springfield where he lost a poker game to a man who owned the bar. He had a 2-week penance. He didn't have the money to pay his bet. So the man said, "You serve beer in my tavern for 2 weeks, we'll call it even." Man made a fortune. Wild Bill convinced that man to build one of these bars. So a man writes a letter, off it goes in the mail, and they built it. And they shipped it to Springfield, Missouri. gets put in the bar, Wild Bill goes off, and unfortunately expires up in Deadwood. That man makes a fortune. People love this bar back. It's quite a bit bigger than the model it's over. I think it's Lindenberg, whatever the name of that other bar is. Yeah. So this one's quite a bit bigger, but it's a very similar setup. And the strange thing about that is the way they were building that, there's quite a bit of paper mache on this thing. They're big 4x4 and 6x6 posts that hold it up, but like those round columns, when you're back there ghost hunting, just knock on them and you'll tell, holy cow, that's not wood. I don't know how they did it. That was built in 1868. Shipped by train all the way to Springfield, Missouri. From there, it went by train to Clever, Missouri. Stayed there up until 1932. In 1932, this is post-Prohibition, the Watkins family from Crane had purchased this bar and decided to open, or the bank, excuse me, decided to open a bar. The man in Clever had just retired, so they bought this from him and brought it over. That's what brings us back to that weird fan up there, or as we call it, the chicken coop. They had to saw the bar and the bar back in half because there's never been a train between here and Clever. Okay? And everyone's like, well, there's never been a train in Clever. There was. If you're old enough, like some of us, you remember seeing train tracks that ran from Springfield to Clever. Those were torn out when they established Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. So all of that was removed, and they tried to restore that back to the way the battlefield looked back then. If you drive very carefully out of here, the old Hodges Farm, which I think is now owned by Chad Shipman, there's a train trestle out in the middle of a pasture. Just a little too big to haul out of there, but it cost us what we used to call an arroyo. I'm not sure what they call it now. Anyway, we put it on 4 wagons, they brought it over here, and then found out it's kind of tall. It's not fit through the door. So they had to saw the wall out of the bank in order to slide it in without cutting it in half again. Somehow they got all 3 of these mirrors by train through all those moves without breaking it. The glass in that bar back is original. So when you look at it closely, I've had a lot of people tell me, I saw someone in the mirror. That mirror is older than our grandparents. And back then, whatever they were wiping on the back, a lot of times it had mercury and stuff in it. You'll see this fading away on the back. So it's very easy to look at that mirror and think something's looking back at you. It's the way the light works on it stuff. It can upset people. Anyway, once they got it in here, they then realized it was too late. They put it in backwards. So this floor you're standing on, back in those days, this is an extremely fancy floor. And over here, where this concrete is, this is where the teller cages were. And there's a photograph of the old bank over there in that cabinet, which has its own story. When they slid the bar in, had I done it, of course I'm a genius, right? I'd have spun it around so my clients at the tavern would be standing on that pretty floor, which goes all the way to that wall. Nobody's perfect though. And once you get this thing in here, even though it's cut in half, you realize you can't turn it around without taking it back out the street. I don't know how they cut that hole in the wall. I've asked every stonemason I know, and they're not sure either. I drilled 2 holes in this wall. It was a bank. So it's block, it's rock, it's plate steel, and a lot of rebar. I burned up a $400 drill bit trying to get through this thing. So it is definitely not going anywhere. Despite some of the extreme weather we can get here in the Midwest, tornadoes, etc., all of these windows are original. They're pretty old. Anyway, the important thing about that cabinet down there, which we'll take a look at here in a second, that is from the 1904 World's Fair. That is cabinet 70 from what was called the Louisiana Exposition, which is one of the longest World's Fair that ever ran. It ran for several years up in St. Louis. Cabinet 70 was part of the Japanese exhibit. So the left side of that cabinet had a suit of Japanese samurai armor, and the right side had swords. If you're like me, I never really studied samurai. I thought they were gone, like cowboys and Indians, if you will. They had samurai in Japan up through World War II. So it's not uncommon on a battlefield to see a man in samurai armor chopping people up with the sword. As crazy as that sounds. If you talk to your grandparents or some of the greater generation, a lot of people in that war also fought on cavalry. It sounds surreal to us, but that's how it went. Anyway, the historians up there wanted that cabinet back. I refused, it's mine. Now it is full of all kinds of things that we found in this bar. And we found things shoved and tucked under every drawer. We have Cecil's deed, where he bought that building, this building, the building that was over there, and the back lot for $3,000. That was total. We found checks from the bank before the building was done. The bank was open, doing business out of another building. You go back to the early 1890s. That's my granddaughter. It's my favorite picture. Anyway, the bar was made by a group of men. The one that you probably are familiar with is Brunswick. So it's extremely hard to see from where you're at, but that center board, right where the bar was cut in half, that says Brunswick, Balky, and Collin. So when you guys are doing your ghost hunt, if you get down there real close and take a look at it, it's embossed in gold. And those three men were obviously very successful. Balky and Collin retired in their early 40s as millionaires. Brunswick continued to grow his empire in Chicago. So if you're, excuse me, if you've ever been bowling or played on a really good quality pool table, odds are the Brunswick company made it. Just fantastic woodworkers. The four columns are what I was talking about, the rounded part. When you're back there, just kind of tap on them. They're hollow. I mean, there's a big beam behind it, but there's a huge air gap too. So it's a beautiful piece of furniture. This light actually does work. And this is one of the more rare Budweiser lights. And I love it because it's from the year I was born, 1971. It's kind of hard to see from where you're at, but it does spin around. And what makes this rare is not the Dalmatian on the wagon, but all the Dalmatian puppies that are chasing the wagon. The light's hanging so high you can't hardly see it. Part of the deal when I bought this place was that some things I would not move until the previous owner passes away. So hopefully when that day comes, we'll have a nice celebration of life and a party, and I can lower this where you guys can actually see some of the cool stuff in this line. Okay. The one thing that is missing off this, the previous owner told me, very close call, there was a giant eagle that they had used up there, and for some reason, randomly one day, bar was full of people, it fell off. Didn't hit anybody, thank goodness, because it was 140 pounds, and now no one can find it, including the previous owner. Didn't break it, they can't find it. So anyway, if I ever do find it, I'll make sure I restore that. Right now, that's a cow that we ate at a benefit for the shrine. It's a long story. Okay. If you don't mind standing right there, Tony, I'll show you one other weird thing. We'll just kind of pick and choose our history here. So this picture's kind of adult nature, but not, I'll let you do your own editing. A man got off a train in 1958, walked up to this bar, and said, "I'll paint a picture for beer." The bar drink. This is what the man painted. It's been in this bar, believe it or not, since 1958. So that man's name was John Duflat, and he did paint his name on the back. And he did this in 1958, like I said. He was a hobo. And while riding the trains almost always stopped in Billings. If you're familiar with Christian County, you know we're way out here on the tip of the panhandle. Almost all of the goods and services that came in and out of here went through the Billings Mercantile, which unfortunately is long gone, but it was the most lucrative business in Christian County for almost 90 years. That man got a cut of everything coming in or out of the whole county. So, doing well. Mr. Duflat, I have no idea where he is today, but I did manage to talk to him after buying this bar. The reason I got him on the phone was, again, the previous owner told me this is probably possessed by a demon. And a picture, a lot of you are probably familiar with it there, the fire in Nixa was rumored to be over an Indian burial ground. I can't find an Indian burial ground in Nixa, but I haven't really tried that hard. But if you look at it carefully, it looks like a man on a horse running for his life in the flames. That picture was, I think, on the cover of USA Today, and I don't know how many newspapers all over the world. When I got up, that's got an angel in it, according to previous owners. It keeps this demon in check. So part of the deal on this bar was these two items will not leave this room until those people pass away. They're afraid that should this be taken outside or in the other room, it will be free and we'll come get them. That was serious enough that I had to sign with a notary at closing. So deal's a deal's not going anywhere. Anyway, John told me when he painted this, while riding the train, he was reading A Midsummer's Night Dream by William Shakespeare. This is his rendition of Puck. He titled it Fenrir because when he was talking to some of the folks here about Puck, they're like, who's William Shakespeare? What is A Midsummer's Night Dream? And what's Puck? He's like, okay, we'll call it Fenrir, which I believe is French for fawn. So anyway, it stays here. It is entirely naked women. So as you're doing your ghost hunt, if you want to take a close look, the highest count we've got to is 36 so far. All right. Again, just a little bit more of that history. And you guys, while you're doing your investigation tonight, I don't know why I keep calling it a hunt. While you're doing your investigation tonight, there's a lot of history that you can pull out of that cabinet. The things that we found that seemed very, very dated, if I couldn't frame it and get it on the wall where people could see it, I put it in that cabinet. There's also some gag gifts and stuff like that in there, but there's a bone saw from the Civil War. There's also a brand new artificial hip. There are condoms in there from 1937, and there are books about this town that were written in the 1910s. So, and then everything in between. So as you're looking around, you're also going to see an item that's framed. It's a photograph or a photocopy of a check. And there's two phrases written above that check on a sheet of paper it's photographed on. There was a big mystery with Cecil Land's wife, Bernice. She was found dead at her home, shot through the heart by a .22 long rifle. I believe it was ruled a hunting accident. No one knows. That check will give you pause when you read the statements that are written above it. All of that happened at about the time that check was written. So, again, if we swing back around this way.
Jeff, where is the painting?
I'm sorry?
The Indian painting, the fire
Oh,
painting?
I'm sorry, it's right up there.
Oh, that's why I didn't say
That happened in mid-90s, didn't it? I remember that.
1972, I think, is what is dated on that.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
we had another one in the 90s, because I remember seeing it in the news leader where there was a fire, and it looked literally a horse, man on a horse rearing up.
It's
And all that.
it can be fairly convincing.
Yeah, I can see it. It is different.
So the one thing that I would give anything to show you guys, and I've talked to Kim about this on a previous investigation. The previous owner, her son was here helping with the bar one night, and he was standing right here. And he is a big fella. He was sweeping. The owner was over there behind the bar, and she's like, "Oh look, there's my son actually working." And she snaps a picture. This is back in the 70s, early 80s, where you had to, wind your film, take it to Walmart, cross your fingers, and 5 days later, maybe get your pictures back. In that picture is that man sweeping the floor and something behind him that is enormously bigger than him. And the picture it's terrifying. But at the same time, it's kind of neat because whatever's behind him looks like it's hugging him, like a dad would a child. Now, this man almost has to duck that door. And this thing's a good 3 feet tall. So that's come up in previous investigations. I do not have that photograph, and the previous owner will not part with it. But it is
Say she'll let you take a picture of it with your phone, and then you can print it off that way.
We're going to try something. I got to do something because it is fascinating. So while I personally haven't seen anything happen in here, a lot of my clients have told me, and I've heard things behind me, like glasses falling over. And I've told Kim this, I've told other ghost investigators this. Ironically, last week, I did see something fall over on its own, and so did my son-in-law, who was helping me behind the bar. And his response was, nope, and he left. is my only credible witness, and he bolted. So,
And that was a very hot spot when we were here, if you'll remember.
yes, it was.
That's
Ironically, that night after everyone had left, I had a customer who couldn't get a ride home. He's very responsible, and he Ubered here. You know, he didn't want to drink and drive. Well, I didn't want to leave him stranded on the sidewalk, so I took him home right as I closed. When I came back and got the bar cleaned up, I went out that door to put the padlock on the other door. We'd unloaded a van through those double doors. When I came back through, and this is after I'd swept and mopped, done the dishes, dumped the trash, there was a coffee cup in the middle of my kitchen floor. Little white, just porcelain coffee cup sitting. So I kind of flipped out. I tore this place apart, and I realized every door's locked. The cameras caught nothing to include the coffee cup moving. That's the second time something like that's happened. Shortly after we bought this place, I met my accountant here. She'd never been inside. Right here where Travis is sitting, I was late to this meeting, so it's kind of embarrassing. I came in and I saw that fan on. That fan sucks a lot of electricity. It's old. So I come running around like, why did I forget and leave that on? This bar stool is sitting in the middle of the floor. And I'm so busy looking at that, I fell over it. I'm like, okay, why is my bar stool in the middle of the floor? Once again, in the camera, bar stool's there. Next frame, it's there. There's no movement. There's no blur. And I can't explain it. I don't have the greatest security system. Anyway, we've had live music almost every weekend since we got opened. I've had 6 bands who've asked not to be named. They've all told me that they have had their instruments moved. They've had things happen to them. We've had bands say we're not coming back. I don't want to discount them, but at the same time, they were legitimately scared. So that's kind of unfortunate. If there is a spirit in here, maybe didn't like the music. I don't know. Anyway, the only other thing that ever happened to me, I have a totally different witness for. I was speaking to a man on the phone about coming here to do an investigation. This particular man believes in Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, the Birdman of Alcatraz, you name it, UFOs. And when I hung up the phone, I remember kind of giggling, and the guy I was with could overhear the conversation, and we're kind of giggling. And we're standing right by the back door, just barely outside. And a woman says, "Hey, boys." And we both spun around to what's obviously an empty room. We came running in here, and we couldn't find anybody. But he heard it, and I heard it. So, other than that, nothing bad or scary or anything has ever happened to me. I'm in here all night by myself. It's just, I feel good here. Now, Kim's investigation picked up some stuff. The image that you shared with me is probably the wildest thing. And it's wild because Sean and I were sitting by the fire. What you photographed is 15 feet away. And we were oblivious.
And it had a shirt on like James's, and I wore my black shirt, and I wore it again tonight, just
Yep.
on purpose.
Yep. So that's kind of some of the history about this place. I hope you take all of that, Tony, as positive. I love this bar. I love the people that come to this bar. We enjoy the live music. We throw a lot of parties. We do a ton for this city, as much as we can. And we try to do stuff at least every 90 days for charity. So I'm hoping we're heading in the right way. The one thing, out of all the investigations we've done, we actually closed the bar one night. We had 40 people spend the night. We ended up with 11 by breakfast. Nothing happened when I was here. But that particular investigator, because I told him, I don't get scared. Nothing, I don't have this sense of foreboding or anything in here. He very calmly asked out loud, "Would you like Jeff to leave?" Everything he had hooked up, yes. As soon as I'm in the backyard, I hear people in here screaming. So hopefully, if I need to leave, if it gets boring, let me know, and I'll go out back, and maybe something will happen.
Start something up.
It sounds like they're used to you, and you're kind of a part of it. So.
I'll be the first to admit, when I come in, I say hi to my ghost, and when I leave, I say goodnight.
Yeah.
And I tell, Part of the thing, and Kim and I have discussed this, 10 out of 10 people are gonna die. Don't be rude. Could be you. You know, none of us are getting out of here alive. So be nice. That's all you can do.